Well, hey, Pathway family and those checking us out. This is the Pathway Podcast, and I'm Pastor Brian, and I've got a couple of special guests today that you'll meet in a minute. And we are so excited about what God is doing with this podcast. And the idea is, how do we dig deeper and build a bigger people in Christ? So please continue to listen, like, subscribe, and share. And today is a special episode because, as I said, we've got a couple of guests, Rob and Angela Banzhaf. And what I'm excited about with this is when we get to have folks on to share what God is doing. We talk often about these God at work stories. It is just so encouraging to hear. And so, let me kick it over to you guys. Tell us a little bit about just who you are, your family, and we can even talk about how you maybe met me and Pathway and all of that. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks, Brian.
Okay. Hi, I'm Angela, and
I'm Rob Banzhaf.
We've been married, it'll be 21 years in May. I'm a Vero Beach native, which is not too common these days, but did grow up in Vero, but met Rob in Texas after I graduated college. So I was out in Texas for 19 years. We have 3 kids, Parker, Austin, and Lucille. They are ages 14, well, let's see, backwards. Parker's 18, Austin 16, and Lulu turns 14 in a couple days. So we are in the thick of it with parenting teenagers and loving life right now in this crazy stage. So moved back to Vero about 7 years ago. Love being back in my hometown with our kids. Rob still does an amazing job with his business back in Texas. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, when we made that move 7 years ago, it was a really big deal for us. I mean, we talked about it and prayed about it for several years. We were very entrenched in the community. My business is still there. But we had gotten to a point in our life where we just kind of wanted something a little bit different. We also knew that and if we wanted to be here in Florida in the future, down the road, we realized, okay, our kids are getting to certain ages at this point. This was 7 years ago. But before they get into high school, before they get entrenched and then we'd relocate them, maybe we need to make this move now and kind of just figure it out, and see if it works but give it a shot, And so it was a real leap of faith.
it was scary.
It was real
Very
scary.
scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was extremely tough decision, big decision. But we couldn't be happier that we made that decision. And then when we had moved here, we were really entrenched in our church back in the Woodlands, which is north of Houston, where we moved from. And when we first moved back, we were like, okay, we need to find a local church. We church shopped for a little bit. We still watched our old church online, and then COVID happened. So it made it really easy to watch church online. You didn't feel like you needed to go.
Because everyone was doing it.
Right?
That was the thing.
Yeah.
And but then as kind of we coming out of COVID, we were just like, we really need to find a local church. For not just for us.
Yeah.
But for our kids as well.
And that was right around the time our boys were playing on a flag football league with your son. So I mean, talk about just the whole, God winks. And we didn't even know you were a pastor. We just knew you as football dad, Brian. And we were coming out from lunch, right?
Chive.
Yes, and we ran into you, and I think we had made a comment about a church or something. And then you're like, well, I'm actually at Pathway.
Well, we had actually planned on coming to
That's right, that
Pathway
weekend.
on Sunday, and this was the Thursday before we ran into you at Chive, and we were like, oh, we're going to Path. And, I don't know if we had just found out that you're the pastor and then run into you, but we were already planning on going Sunday anyway. But anyways, it was just wild. That was, coming up on 4 years ago probably. And we've just loved it here, and again, we weren't, I kind of mentioned this on stage, I think a couple of weeks ago. We weren't coming in here and saying, hey, we're going to get entrenched and we're going to get involved and we're going to be a part of things. But when God opened that door, I think we were open to it and we accepted some of those things. And so, and then obviously, so there was this natural evolution of our kids getting really entrenched and ingrained into the youth.
And that's kind of how it started. I think our biggest thing was we want to go to a church where there's a strong youth group where our kids can really, get in there and serve and help and learn the word. And the ironic, crazy part is when I grew up here, I went to First Church of God,
Yeah.
which was, way back in the day.
Yeah.
So that was my youth group. So again, it's just this whole full circle moment, and it's just been really awesome. Especially
amazing.
seeing our kids that's been, I think, the biggest blessing, because, teenage years are challenging and struggling, and just especially the world that we live in. And just seeing them just be so happy here and just joyful, and then bringing friends in and serving. Our boys are now serving in the middle school Wednesday nights where our daughter is. And it's just been really just such a blessing.
Yeah, it's encouraging just hearing and there's so many like little nuances in that.
Oh,
The
yeah.
fact that you guys took a massive step of faith to relocate the community and dig in, or relocate the family to a community and dig in, and to just see how that has kind of naturally unfolded over the last few years, and to see where you're at today. I think in some ways, people would look at where you guys are at today and potentially be overwhelmed by it. Like, oh my goodness, I don't know if we could dive in like that, but it's happened so naturally. It's kind of been this progression, and so it's been fun to watch. I remember running into you guys at the restaurant Chive, and not a place I went very often. I think it might have been even my first time going at that time 4 years ago, and just watching God work and connect us, because our family was searching too, right? We had relocated to be a part of Pathway because of my job, but then searching for where's community for us, where's connection. And that flag football team was a big deal for our son. It was kind of his breakthrough too. So hopefully that just encourages people that as you're following the Lord, to just keep walking by faith and trusting that he will bring things in at the right time. What have you guys found, when you think about what God's been doing in your family, what are some of this isn't in the notes, so you can go, "Oh, I don't know," but I'm just curious, what are some things that you guys have found that have helped you stay connected? Because I feel like you guys do that so well, that have helped the kids, stay connected to you, but also because you're in such a busy season. They're all athletes. They're all playing multiple sports. So how do you guys do it? What are some parenting hacks, if you will?
I'll take this one because Angela deserves all the credit for this. Like she is our family's rock, without a doubt, foundation. She's the one who guides us and leads all of us, and demands a lot from all of us. A sense of, we're going to eat dinner together on, Sundays are family days. You're not going to make these other plans. We've got certain rules, and you don't stray from those. But again, and we're going to church, you're going to youth. No, there's no excuses. But in a positive way that we all appreciate, and we're all going to really cherish that later on, because we are very connected with our family, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. I think you say rules. I'm sure our kids think I'm very strict. And for me, it's more about just setting standards and keep holding these kids to these high standards, because they're all beautiful. We all are beautiful children of God. And so it's okay, just set these standards for ourselves, for our family. We have, I just feel like it's family above all, right now. And I know that's a challenge with teenagers, and they want to be with their friends, and we certainly love that, and we love to have the friends at our house. But it is about just making sure they know, church is important, reading our Bible is important, just spending time with Jesus is very important. And and we all have challenges and struggles, and we try to, get together and say okay, what's happening with y'all today or this week, or are there friends that you're concerned about, or can we pray for them or pray for y'all? And so, I just think it's really important as far as just trying to make the family life and these teenagers especially a priority. And luckily, I feel very blessed that, Rob is able to support for our family, so that I'm not working right now. And that was a very, a few years ago, I was a wedding and event planner, and, was all ready to grow my company and just dive into the Vero scene like I had been in Texas. And then I we moved here, and I just realized, these years are so limited with these kids in the ages that they are. And, people always get married and people always have parties. Like, if I want to go back to that one day, I can. And so thankfully, I'm very blessed in the way that Rob can support the family to where I was able to just 100% be a mom. And where I look at that as a ministry, like motherhood is a huge ministry.
It is.
And, in this day and age, it's kind of almost becoming less and less because people are so driven to, climb that ladder, get that job or get that promotion, which is great. And that's nothing against that. For me, though, I just felt God was calling me to be all in all the time with my kids. And they're probably like, okay, mom's too in sometimes. But, and then I've obviously have found a passion of just using my talents with other things, going and, I'm like the team mom and I'm all in with the football boosters, and like anywhere my kids are, I try to be all in, not only because it gets selfishly, I get to spend more time with them and be where they are, but I get to also meet their friends and meet those families. And, the last few years have been crazy as far as seeing kids in our community and young adults and young student athletes in our community that don't have the upbringing that ours do. And not that that's a, it's eye-opening to where you're like, okay, well, where can I serve these kids better? And then hopefully years from now, our own children will look back and say, wow, like we were all doing a ministry.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, two things that stand out. One is like within the home, just the idea of understanding priorities, connection, and communication, right? And you guys are doing that so well. Those that follow you on social media see that, and then I've got to know you guys over the last couple of years, and it's like it's even more real knowing you, that the stuff that's on social media that's showing your kids and the athletes and all the different things, it's really who you guys are. Like I don't think you're posting enough, probably.
It's funny. Angela actually mentions that. Like I feel like I don't want to do that, but I'm so proud of our kids. Like and so
So it's been fun for me as a pastor, but also as your friend to see like, no, this is really who you guys are. And then the other aspect is we talk a lot about being the church. Like, what does it mean Monday through Saturday to live out our faith? And I hope people are catching that because, as you do that with athletics in our community, as you do that, not just for your kids, but for others to see that you don't always, Rob has a ministry within the church right now that he's serving on a team. Angela, a lot of your ministry is out in the community. And these are both equally valuable and good how God's using and working. So it's really cool. Really cool. Rob, I feel like you were about to say something.
I was just going to say, she says she's blessed that I can provide, but we're really blessed that it's society in general, it's very easy to unplug and become unattached and let your kids kind of just let the world take care of them, right? Let them be on social media. They'll stay busy. They'll, and then you can kind of do your own thing. And Angela always puts, obviously our faith, but then our family first above her own needs sometimes, a lot of times, to where, that's the hard way, right? People generally today want to make sure they're okay, make sure they're doing what they want to do first, and if they have time for their kids or they have time for their husband or they have time for church, then it'll come, like those priorities. And Angela has done a really good job, and that's where we are blessed as a family so much that she, prioritizes things the right way. And I think I solely or truly believe, and I think she does too, is that we hope that continues. Our kids see that and appreciate it, and that they, hopefully kind of raise their kids and their families that way as well. Because again, like the burden she takes on, emotional burden, if you will, of our kids and making sure they're okay and staying attached and with their grades and everything, really. It helps me being able to do what I need to do for our family,
Yeah,
because
awesome.
Because it can be a lot and it's underestimated a lot of times nowadays. So
Yeah, no, it is just humble service, right? We talk about that around Pathway and what does it mean to be servant leaders, and you guys do it so well, and you're doing it in the home. And a couple weeks ago, actually, even it was I knew you guys were out of town with one of your kids on a college visit, and to see two of your other kids, teenagers, in church, engaged in church, and hanging out even afterwards, and I had a chance to talk to them afterwards. I mean, I was like, there's not a better testimony as a parent than what I got to witness of your kids that day. And so yeah, just be encouraged. It's working. God's moving.
Well, I mean, I want to give some credit to Pathway also and the youth group, because the transformation and the growth we've seen in our kids, it's inspired us to be better parents, to be better husband and wife, to be better role models to them.
Wow.
When we see our kids stepping up and doing such great things, we're like, whoa, like we probably need to sharpen, sharpen our skills a little bit.
After they
It's
went
been amazing.
this past summer, all three went to Passion Camp.
Yeah.
And they came back, and I remember the first Sunday back after they came home, and they all had these notebooks, and they're taking notes in church. And I mean, we've never brought a notebook, and I'm like, I guess we need to get a notebook, and that was it was cool. Even this past Christmas, we got them all new notebooks because theirs was getting full, and I got Rob one, and so that has definitely become something really cool and fun and new in our family. And just so proud of them. And I think we've got a few months left of our oldest before graduation, and this has been a challenging season, a super great one, because we're really proud of obviously all three kids, but we're super proud of the work that he's been putting in. He's trying to become a collegiate athlete, which is a whole nother level. And so seeing the work he's putting in, but for me right now, I've been just fully leaning in to God to just take care of him and our situation and put him wherever he needs to be. And that was, since I am all in with all their grades and everything else, that was a challenge a few months ago, because I was really trying to control the situation a little bit about, the college applications and where's he going to go and this and that. And so it's been kind of very freeing the last few months of just giving it all to God and just saying, okay, he just have your way, wherever he is going to be. And just seeing just lately, just some amazing things just happen for him has just been really awesome.
That's really cool. I think so many of us can relate to that. Even this morning, I was just kind of praying over Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he'll make your path straight. And just that idea of letting go and saying, okay, God, you have, and it's hard with our kids. It's hard, with our spouse, even in our, with ourselves. So yeah, that is, I think, a good word for all of us. As you guys have seen God moving and working in your family and in Pathway over the last couple of years, what are some of the things that maybe have encouraged you and maybe even challenged you, in the letting go? And because it when we do, it starts to affect how we spend our time. It starts to affect how we spend our resources. And those are all things that lead us, I think, closer to God and to others. But in that letting go, there's usually something God's doing. So just what has he been doing in your guys' life over the last, year or two in some of those areas?
Yeah, I mean, I can say like exactly what you're talking about, submitting and surrendering. That's a challenge I've always had, and I still have. It's an ongoing challenge. But I think that, especially in the last couple of years, and I remember it was in November of 23, you had a sermon about First and Finest.
Yeah.
And that really hit home with me, because I'd realized during that time, during 2023, like I'm commercial real estate. That's what my business is back in Houston. And things, that's when the interest rates hiked, and everything was kind of crazy. Like business was really down. We had taken on a big project at our house. I was just really like stressed out financially, just like, oh my gosh, like, and I noticed during that time as I was not giving my first and finest, to Jesus, like, or to God. Like, and I was like letting this stress be my first thing that I focused on. Right. And like, how am I going to fix this? What do I need to do? How, get through this. And I remember that sermon really hit me. It was like, as opposed to bringing God closer to me in that moment of stress and anxiety, like there was a barrier, right? So let's say put finances, like, let's say Jesus was right here and finances were here and I'm here and I'm trying to take care of everything. When in reality, I need to, like, I need to lean in more and be closer. And it hit me like, oh my gosh, like as opposed to leaning on him, I'm trying to take it all myself. I'm not like submitting it over to him and turning it over and surrendering. And that was a challenging time for me, for it's probably about a year or so where I was just really, kind of going through it. And I try not to, like, as I mentioned earlier, Angela takes on a lot of the burden and stress of our kids in the house, and I don't want to put anything else on her. I probably should communicate better about, I think at one point she's like, I didn't even know that you were stressed about that,
Which, I mean,
Wow.
again, is not great because
Right.
he was holding all that in versus sharing it with me, so, I mean, but God provides, and it obviously is great, fine now, but it's, in a marriage, you're always like, well, communication is key and number one. And so then I was thinking, well, maybe I could have done something to help, or, at least we could have been praying about it, or, so it's, it's all of those things that are a challenge.
Yeah. And it was interesting because, obviously it's always like looking back, like God puts you in these different positions for a reason. Right. At that same time, I was serving on the Finance and Property Committee, which is now the Stewardship Committee here at the church. And we were going through a very similar thing with the church, with our committee. And I thought that it was very interesting at the time where I'm like, wow, God put me in this position to hopefully be able to provide some insight or some advice based on what I'm going through in my life at the exact same time, right? Put some things in perspective. In addition, part of me realizing like we needed to surrender a little bit more was like, in which you kind of hit on yesterday in the sermon, where it's like, okay, like, yes, we would tithe, consistently when we were at church, right? And if we weren't at church, we wouldn't tithe that week. And then in the committee meeting, we were talking about, I think you might have even been at this one, but we were talking about, hey, we have auto draft or, reoccurring giving. I'm like, well, I didn't know we had that, right? I was like, but in that position I'm in, I was like, okay, well, we probably need to let more people know that. If I didn't know that I'm on this committee, we need to really let the church know that, because that's the obedience and part of the surrender of like realizing, okay, like we need to get on auto draft. And especially in a time when it was a challenge or a stretch at the time financially, but I knew it needed to be done.
Yeah.
And so that was like, again, this is just my journey of like needing to surrender, right? This can be for everybody else. I mean, it can always be something. It could be something else. It could be, a habit or a pattern or addiction or, anything else, or stress. I mean, there's so many different things that could be in this place that we're talking about. I think though the Bible does talk a lot about money, because a lot of times, a lot of the things that we focus on ourself or the worldly things, money's like that first step of like, if I have that, then I can have all these other things, right?
Absolutely.
And so it gets in the way of that. And I noticed it got in the way of my relationship with Christ at the time. And that I needed to surrender a little bit. That was just one act that helped me. And then of course, God got us through that challenging time. And then we, obediently, upped our tithe that are reoccurring, and so that was kind of where it was very interesting, those steps you showed yesterday, because I was like, hey, that's kind of a journey that I've been on for the last, that we had been on for the last year or so.
So if I could, let me fill in a couple gaps for those that maybe, are listening to this at a different time. And then I'll let you kind of go back into that if I could, because the journey is incredible. And I do think that you're spot on. For some, finances are that thing in the way of them and God. For others, it may be their time, it may be a habit. And so really the idea is what is first? Is God first? Is Jesus first in everything? And the basic theology of your first and finest is that God is first, whether we admit it or not. He is first. He gave first, right? He gave his son Jesus, and then as a result, what we do with our resources shows kind of who's really got the wheel of our heart, who's really in charge. And the hope is, if he's first and he gave first, that I now, out of the overflow, begin to give him my first and finest. And those 4 steps, we talked yesterday about regular, becoming a first-time giver, people that have never done it, becoming a regular giver, where it's that reoccurring pattern of our worship and being cheerful givers in that. The 3rd step being your first and finest, right? And, as a pastor, I think I want to rush people to there because I see the freedom, I see what it does. But it's like, no, we need to let people take baby steps, or the next step. And then the 4th would be strategic giving. Those that, they're doing your first and finest, they're giving regularly. And maybe God's blessed them in such a way that they can give even more strategically. So that's your first and finest. Those are the 4 steps. And you're kind of saying that you feel like you've walked through those. Tell us more.
Well, just walking through those in the sense of having the big picture realization, as you mentioned, that like, this is all God's anyway. Like, God has blessed us with this. Like, it's not really ours. And the sooner we can surrender that and realize it and obediently give it back and let him do whatever he wants with it in our lives and however that's supposed to work. That's again, and that it's been a powerful first step for us as a family. We gave a strategic gift towards the end of the year, and this is not something. It's not about us at all, and it's not something people like to talk about. I do think it's important though, especially being on the stewardship committee and realizing like, hey guys, like, this is God's kingdom that we and this church is God's business of bringing people closer to him, right? Like we need to grow his kingdom, and this is his vehicle that he's using. He's using us. Everybody in this room, he's using this facility, this property, and understanding that also, how beneficial it is in the big picture to be able to surrender. Now, again, we're talking about just finances. There's a lot of other things I need to still surrender, other things that in my life, and so it's still an ongoing journey, but it is an important first step, in my opinion, and it's just valuable to. It was like, Angela and I talked about it, and we, prayed about it. We talked to our kids about it. I thought that was a really big moment, an opportunity that we were like, okay, like, just so they can hopefully carry, that mindset in a lot earlier than we did, or get into those healthy habits. And again, it's the big picture of like, and this really hit me, through maybe some books I was reading at the time of the last couple of years, but it's like, we're on this earth in such a small time. Yeah. In reality, and like, God's kingdom is so big, and everything that we have while on this short time is really from him anyway. It's a blessing from him, and so it's almost like for us to give some of it back. It's, oh yes, this is a good thing you're supposed to do, but in reality, it's like, it's all his anyway, and so it's like, if I can maybe surrender this little piece of my life, it's going to help me surrender other things to him and eventually surrender it all to him, and submit. And so still on that journey, still working through it. But again, I think it's a big first step, and it was a big learning lesson coming out of what we went through the last couple of years. And I think it was also, God put us in that position on purpose, right? He puts us in those challenging times to help us grow, hopefully, and learn from them, and then hopefully be able to evolve, as we move forward. So.
Yeah, I think what I love too is walking with you and finding out more later about what you were dealing with, similar to maybe how Angela felt. It's like, I had no idea that you were going through that, but you didn't allow that to prevent God from using you. Even though you were dealing with some things, you were still at the table, still trusting the Lord, and God was using you with that committee that you mentioned, just providing really valuable, timely insight. And I think it's just a good reminder for all of us that wherever we're at in the journey, if we are his and it's all his, then we're just the stewards, right? He's the owner, we're the manager, and he wants to use us at every stage. And that's such a gift and blessing to realize that God does want to use us, at every stage in the journey. Because I think sometimes people can feel like, well, I'm not ready, or I'm not far enough, or I'm not where they're at. And even while that may be true, that you're not where you want to be yet, you're still somewhere where God is with you and can use you. So, Angela, any thoughts on that? And then I've got another topic I'm going to pivot to kind of towards the end.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I was obviously just, Rob was leading our family and leading through that whole process, and just was so proud of the way he did do that leadership role, and he always has in our family. And I was just kind of going along with it, like, okay, yes, I trust in this, and was just happy that we were able to share it with our kids to kind of teach them that as well. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and I just want to make some comments, because as you go through this journey, and if this helps anybody when they're thinking about it's, I think God will tug at your heart at certain things. And I think you just have to be willing, as kind of mentioned earlier, just be willing to have an open mind and open heart on some of those things, and don't ignore them, because again, it's just God put it on my heart there. And this is just a quick story that I think is kind of interesting, but God put it on my heart. There was a certain number that came into my head, and I don't know why. Just it's just it was kind of stuck in my head of like, hey, I think we should maybe do a strategic gift. And I mentioned to Angela, and this was kind of a 2-3 month process of it's kind of this amount was in my head, and wanted to pray on it and think about it. And during that time, you can see, and I can understand, and I did understand, like, how the devil tries to work and tries to get you to stray from that. Like, hey, that's a number just in my head. Nobody knows it. I could always do half of that, or I could always do less of that. Oh, wait, this big, we had this big, accident or bill came up, and we got this big expense, and, and then, so there's all these little things that happen along the way where you can easily, and this is, everybody can easily say, no, I really have this thing I need to pay off, or I'm going to need a new car coming up. I've got a kid going to college. There's all these different things where you can easily say, you know what, I really actually kind of need that, and I'm going to need that. And you can justify that very easily in today's world. And one thing happened, I think I told you this story over coffee one time, and I told Angela, and she was like, wow, because she didn't know either.
Yeah.
But I had a large transaction that was scheduled to close towards the end of the year last year, and I had already reduced my fee for it. Not to get into details, but I'd already kind of agreed to reduce my fee to help out my client, the seller of this property. He came to me and he said, hey, I really want you to reduce your fee because I have to pay this termination penalty, and so you should take it off of the price, even though contractually you're not obligated to, but I think you should. I said, well, let me think about it. I've already kind of reduced my fee. don't feel real comfortable about it, but I'll get back to you. I went back and I calculated what that reduction would be, and it was the exact same amount that I had been on my heart for our strategic gift. And it hit me right then. I was like, it would be so easy for me. Nobody knows. I haven't said, Brian, I'm going to give this strategic gift, and we've allocated this. Nobody knows. I could have said, okay, I'll agree to that, and then it's coming out of the strategic gift. You know what I'm saying? But it actually convicted me the other way, where I was like, this is a sure sign that this is what I need to do, that this is what we need to do as a family, because I was like, just the fact that it's the exact same number, I was like, there's a reason why. Like, and perhaps it was risky. Perhaps my client would have said, okay, I'm not doing the deal then, or could have blown it up, or something could have happened. And I just told him, I said, no, I'm not going to agree to that. And it's not because, I said, I'm not agree to it. It could have killed the deal, but I was okay with it because I realized that was the devil trying to work in and trying to, like, one last ditch effort of like, okay, you don't have to give that to back to God. You don't have to give that to the church. Like, and luckily the client probably wasn't happy, but he agreed. That deal ended up closing later down the, months later. So it all worked out good. But I think that was just a sign. So there's these signs along the way. I guess my point is like, and that's with everything. It's, this is an example for finances. But I think everything in our lives, when you have these things that you're trying to turn over, the devil's going to be trying to pull you back and try to say, oh no, don't do that. You don't need to do that. Like, look what the world can offer. Look what, and try to pull you back to your flesh. And so again, this is just the beginning of our journey. I'm still trying to grow and learn from these things and be able to submit and surrender in other areas of my life and be a better husband and dad and all these things. And so, but it is an important part, I think, and it's been a big step for me, hopefully in my relationship as it continues to grow. So
yeah. Well, I didn't know if you would share that story or not. You'd shared it with me, like you said, over coffee. So I appreciate you sharing it with others because it is so relatable, whether it's directly with strategic giving or it's something else. There is an enemy that loves to throw bait in front of us, whatever that bait might be, to tempt us and, to try to get us off of the path God has. And amazing what the Lord has done with that. I just want to take a minute for those that are online with us or listening, just for you to know that in the giving conversation, we really believe that the Lord has more for us, an abundant life for us, and that He also wants to meet us right where we're at in those realities. So it's really not about what God wants or needs from us, but what He wants for us. And it's ultimately about freedom, getting us free of these things. Pathway has a great resource. We've partnered with Dave Ramsey's ministry. If you go to pathwayvb.com/Ramsey, we actually are giving away Ramsey Plus, which is it's their suite of products, and it's all free. If you just go to pathwayvb.com/Ramsey, you can get yours. We'd love to serve you in that way. And hopefully that's a help. For my family, a few years ago, we leaned into some of the Ramsey stuff for the second, third time, and we did it in community. And when we did it in community, it worked faster, right? So there's something about being in community together that makes a difference. And I guess this is kind of where I want to land the plane with you guys. About a year ago, Cindy and I, my wife, began to feel like, okay, we want to get into community with people here at Pathway now that we've been here a few years. And so we have a Pathway group, a life group that meets twice a month. You guys are part of that. And for us, it's been very life-giving. It's not always consistent sometimes in the way it works with everybody's schedules, but I think the commitment has been consistent. Talk to us a little bit. What is, and it could be back to the Woodlands, it could be here. What would you say about just consistent community and being in a group and what's that been and meant to you guys?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's been great. It's really funny you asked that because on the way here this morning, I heard from one of our friends that's in our small group that texted me and messaged me about our son had a amazing weekend at a track meet and just saying how proud she was of him and checking in, saying, hey girl, so it's just, everybody obviously is so busy, and that's such an easy word. Like everyone's busy. Yeah. And it's just so nice to know that, even if we don't see each other every week or every 2 weeks and, life throws things at us, that we all have, we have people that are, praying for us, really great friends that are just going to be there if and when, and we need them so it's been really great to have that. It's really funny because back in the Woodlands, the community was amazing and we were very plugged in. But we were in different stages of our lives. Like it was just a different chapter. So we were involved in some different nonprofits and going to these big, fundraising events. And it was like our calendar was filled all the time. And it was great. And it was amazing. And we still have lifelong friends from that time. But I think as, your kids age and progress and you go through different stages and chapters of your life, things kind of shift. And so I mean, we joke all the time that, we're like, well, we don't really have a ton of friends right now. We don't have a huge social life or huge social calendar. And we're fine with that. It's one of those, like, we're exactly where God needs us to be right now with our children, with our time that we're giving to others, to church, to all of that. And so starting the small group when y'all did was great because it just it filled that, I don't want to say void, but it just kind of filled, like, knowing that we could have a little bit of that, socialization, but yet still be present in where we need to be currently. I don't know if that made sense.
Yeah, no, it does. And to your point, it's the best part is, we were very consistent at the beginning. I know Cindy was traveling a lot, so but everybody got to know each other and know everybody's story. And so now as we go into different seasons and some of us are busy, we can't attend every small group night. There's still that connection and there's still that community and there's still that group messaging where we know people are still thinking about us, worrying about us, caring about us, praying for us, and we are doing the same for them. And we know we love it when we see them at, we're here at church and we see them. And, so it's more than just meeting on the Tuesday nights, right?
Yeah.
It is a true community. And I think the biggest thing is that when, again, it's similar to what I said earlier, when God puts something in your heart, just be open to it. I think that's maybe maybe another big thing I've learned, obviously, the last couple of years is don't just worry about or think about how is this going to affect me and my timeline and my schedule and what I think I should be doing at this time, my season or this season of life, right? It's more like, okay, well, maybe there's a reason why. Maybe at least just open up to it. Maybe there's a reason why I should forget about what I had planned on usually do on Tuesday nights, and I should maybe look into this or consider it.
Yeah.
Because there's probably a reason why that's being put on your heart, and it's probably, a bigger reason than anything you can imagine. So.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good word. I think oftentimes we can over spiritualize how God speaks to us, right? And people can be like, I just don't know how God speaks. Well, that idea of Him highlighting something, putting it on your heart, right? It might be as you're reading the Word, it might be as you're talking to somebody. It might just be that sense of there's something missing. And, and I think for many in our group, it was in that season where we all felt that deeper community and connection was missing. And to see how God has blessed that over the last year has been really, really cool. Because, we have a little chat and, everyone's praying and encouraging each other. And for me, it led into, some pickleball that's been played not very well by me, but it's, it's been fun. And I think whatever the Lord is revealing, even as you've listened to this podcast, I believe God speaks to us and highlights things, and lean into it. And hopefully today, this has been an encouragement to those listening and watching that God is working. He's moving in really cool ways in our world. And your family is such a blessing to our Pathway family, also to the Bennett family. And just thank you so much for the ways that you guys are just life-giving. And anything, last words that either of you would like? We always like to do it at the end. Is there anything you wanted to say or that didn't get said? Anything, last words?
I mean, I just feel, I think I mentioned before that our firstborn, he'll be graduating soon. And so we are, leaning in to just try to this next stage, or we don't know what things are looking like in the next even 6 months. But just, I keep having to say to myself to just really lean in and to trust that God is not only going to take care of our son, but our family as we adjust. People do it all the time. Kids go away to college, kids move away. But, for me, I think just because my whole identity right now is being just the mom and the caregiver, is just trying to kind of figure out, okay, what's that next stage look like? How is God going to use me as our son travels away, or maybe he doesn't go away? It's all of those, the what ifs. And so just trying to really lean in and trust God. I'm also just so thankful that we are here. My parents are going through some pretty major health issues. So that, again, I said to Rob a little while ago, I'm like, this is God brought us here for so many more reasons. And this is a big one, for me to be here. I can't imagine being far away if had we still been in Texas. And so it's all of those challenges. But yet just continuously day by day, just praying. And my constant prayer is just for God just to always be putting me where exactly I need to be. So it's not always easy, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if we can look at the evidence though, and everybody can, it's like, okay, God put you in our lives for a reason, put Pathway in our lives for a reason. Like, look where we are now, and look at all these little things that happen along the way. That wasn't by accident, right? I mean, that's the way you got to say, like, there's a reason why, and God knew that bigger reason, His plan, and it's so hard on a day-to-day basis to really lean into that on everything you do. But it's so freeing when you can in those short little moments where you're like, okay, like, I'm giving it to God, right? Giving it to God. It's like, that's, yes, everybody, you hear that, you say that, you want to do it, you try to do it, but we are still humans and we still want to control things, and we still try to, take things on ourselves. But I think really, if you look at the evidence and you can say, okay, like, how do we get here? Why are we here? It's part of this bigger plan, right? Like, and I don't know, it's just, it's still, like I said earlier, it's still a journey. Like, I'm still trying to grow and still trying to learn on this and really truly surrender and submit. But the evidence is there if I look back, right? Like, and try to be grateful for everything we have and everything that He's provided us, and Pathway's part of that. And so thank you guys too.
Yeah. Well, thank you for today. And, I love that the evidence is all around us, right, of what God is doing. So thank you for listening, watching, and please just remember to like, share, subscribe, all the things. And we'll see you again soon on the Pathway Podcast. Have a great week.